Welcome to the Non-Essential Podcast. I'm Steve Gibson.
I'm Benaboo Skibbity-doo.
Show up. I had something funny to start the show with earlier when we're not doing the show. I was like, that would be a funny opening. I don't know.
But now I've given up on that. I've given up on trying to make you laugh.
Now I'm just coming after your feelings.
Yeah. Laughs are cheap. We want to horrify you now.
Yeah. I mean, I did make a good domestic violence joke off air, so
yeah.
Warming up.
Yeah.
Warming up.
We know our crowd. So yeah, welcome to the Non-Essential Podcast. It's another week of fucking bullshit that I scrambled together
fucking
from
bullshit.
the Creepypasta
Hell yeah.
fandom because I don't know.
That's where we're at. That's where we're at now.
I'm shutting
folks,
down hard.
Yeah, it's not going to get better between now and the holidays.
Yeah. Like if I was tired with nothing going on in October, like, yeah, you're fucked. If you want like good content.
Yeah, if you want good shows, go elsewhere. That's our new motto.
We're not even 2 minutes in. We're saying it's a bad show. And
no, technically, we didn't say it's a bad show. Well, I guess we did. But the reality is, I don't think it's a bad show. It's just bad content.
Yeah. That's a good way. That's a nice spin on it. It's like,
yeah.
You know,
we're the best at bringing you bad content. And that's not fair, because I really actually do like the creepypasta. Not the one that I come up with, generally, because I'm bad at it.
Well, I don't know if this one will be good. But, you know, it's here. I found it. And by found it, I hit random story. And this is the second one I found. So
it'll be like the greatest thing we've ever, because that's what happens when you randomly pick one. When I randomly pick one, we get like, this is a creepypasta if Hemingway wrote it after getting shot in the face and being drunk. Although, in fairness, I think he wrote most of his stuff drunk, so I don't know that affects.
Yeah. You maybe drink more.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Or less. That's it. Yeah. This is a sober Hemingway story.
So yeah, this story today is Macaroni by MacaroniArtZombeh. Z-O-M-B-H.
Z-O-M-B-H, or you say
A-H.
B-H. Zombie.
Zombie.
That's that Cranberries song, yeah.
Yeah.
Zombie.
This is where that chick went. She faked her death and
she's writing creepypastas. She's like, I just want to be able to write creepypastas in peace. Like, they keep asking me to sing that damn zombie song.
Yeah. Then she narrates it, but it just sounds like the zombie song.
It starts out, it's October 24th, in your head. Yeah. In your head.
In your head. This story is called Mr. Trenchfoot. So you know it's good because it's got a colorful character in it.
Good old Mr. Trenchfoot.
I know the topic of scary or rather disturbing stories from our childhoods are outdated and furthermore considered cliche. Then you're on the fucking right forum. You know,
I was gonna say they're insulting our show already. Touche, writer.
Yeah,
touche.
Fair enough. But I thought you might like this one. This one was from my high school years. I wasn't always rebellious. In fact, I was a good kid. I wasn't what you would call an angel of a child, but I was still keeping up appearances. All right, so it's 2023. This kid's wearing like a leather jacket and greasing his hair and has like a cigarette pack rolled up in a t-shirt. And when he shows up for class, that's keeping up appearances.
Yeah, see, I'm picturing the Pee-wee's Big Adventure scene where like he's trying to convince the one girl that she wouldn't want to go out with him because he's like a bad dude, and it's like he's fucking Pee-wee Herman.
I was still keeping up appearances, had good grades, was disciplined enough, and I had pretty well developed manners. I hung out with this delinquent, Cody. He was an asshole. The biggest one you'll ever meet.
I liked this because I was about
I
to
was
say...
pretty cool. My friend was a fucking idiot, you know?
Well, I would have been... Because when you're like, oh, I wasn't a deviant yet. I was a good kid. I was going to say, this sounds like me. And then you said, I hung out with Cody. That was like one of my best friends' names in school. Yeah. So I'd be like, oh, it is that. And then you say, he's an asshole. I'm like, well, maybe not. I don't think Cody's an asshole. But...
no, he was the biggest one you will ever meet. It's published online now, so it's just true.
Yeah, it's just as true. So I was just texting him about the Watson thing because he's a big Browns fan too. So I'll have to text him back today. Sorry, more breaking news. You're apparently a big asshole.
People on a very isolated fucking fandom page all agree.
Yeah. I'll agree. And
I'll agree that this guy was pretty cool, kept up appearances, but you were the biggest asshole. Nobody really liked him, but he was quite wealthy, and while his parents were away, he would throw huge parties that half of the 10th grade students from my high school would go to.
Yeah, so far it doesn't sound like an asshole. Sounds like a pretty cool dude.
And pretty generous with his fucking wealth and time. I was always invited to these, being a good kid. It's like super ego on this kid. I was always invited to these, but he always started the parties late at night, around midnight. What an asshole.
Don't you know I've got a test tomorrow, Cody?
Yeah, it's like... His last party did, at least, which meant my parents wouldn't let me go, so I didn't even bother asking. I know it wasn't my nature, and now that I look back, it was a really stupid choice, but I decided I would sneak out. Which, I mean, you know... It's funny that that's like, you know, I'm a good kid, you know, like that's the difference.
Yeah,
it's
that's
like,
the thing is, I was
done that.
Like, I was going to point out too. He's like, I'm a good kid, unlike my friend, the delinquent who throws all these parties that I also go to and participate in the exact same stuff.
Yeah, I wasn't a delinquent. I just happened to be around every delinquent in town. But not me. My grades were good.
I didn't throw the party, so I'm a good kid.
Yeah. No, that just means you were dumb enough to do your homework when you didn't have to.
Right.
Kids, do your homework, or you end up
no.
Stupid.
Don't listen to good advice. Listen to this. Think about the kids that made it through school by not doing any of the work and still graduating. That's the best fucking life skill to learn for actual adulthood. Yeah. Right? Like, those are the ones that probably went pretty far in life. In fact, I feel like those are the ones that are in control of like every...
I don't know. I'm just saying I didn't do my homework and now I'm talking to you. 3 people.
Good point. Good point.
My dad stayed up till 11 every night and never emerged from his bedroom until the following morning, and my mom always slept till noon using beauty sleep as an excuse. It's not an excuse. People go to bed, you know. It's like, who knows what she works, you know?
Why were you sleeping last night? I need a reason right now.
Yeah. She slept till noon is because, like, if you can sleep till noon, you should. That's basically the reason. Problem is, life gets in the way and people expect shit from you. But you were a good kid. She did her job. So, that's
what I'm going to start a new religion that's similar to Christianity, but the devil's not like an entity. It's just the fact that none of us get to fucking sleep as much as we want.
Yeah,
that is because I think that is the real driving nature behind like all of humanity's like cruelty and stuff. Is just lack of sleep.
Yeah, look at every atrocity ever committed, and I guarantee you there's a factor of, like, a lack of sleep.
I'm saying Hitler's well known to have not been able to sleep. So
I am not saying that. I'm not going to excuse Hitler. We are not doing that on this show.
No, it's not an excuse. I'm just saying it wasn't, like, some evil, like, entity that makes these people be evil. It's if he had had one good nap, there might be a few million people still alive today.
I mean, you know...
Well, maybe not today. They would have died by now, but you know what I mean.
But he would... I don't know. He would have been painting or some shit. No.
Right.
Probably not.
You'd have been the German Bob Ross.
Probably not. We're tired on this show every week, and we don't want to, like, commit genocide. So.
Speak for yourself.
Okay.
You can't see what's on my whiteboard over
today
here.
On the final episode of the Non-Essential Podcast, a shocking confession.
It's good. My nukes are primed and ready.
Jesus Christ. Shut the fuck. I'm going to have to bleep all that. I'm just going to replace all your audio with one long bleep. My dad stayed up till 11 every night. Okay, Mom slept. Time came. It was the night of the party. It was about 11:30, and my dad had already stumbled into his bedroom and proceeded to snore loudly. I slowly twisted the handle of my door to reveal the inky blackness of the hallways. Now would be the perfect time to escape. If not now, never. Or 15 minutes from now, he's asleep. It's probably fine.
Do you really need to, like, describe sneaking out of the house? Like,
when I was a kid, like, it was like one of my minor chores was like making sure the trash was taken out for garbage day. So you would have to do it at night. And a lot of times I would forget. And my former stepdad, used to sleep in the living room. So, like, trying to do it and not wake people up, which, like, I wouldn't have gotten in trouble for doing it, but it's like you want to not wake everybody up. But trying not to wake everybody up was a pain in the ass. So I would always, like, take the garbage cans through this route through my backyard gate at the time. And I remember doing that and thinking, like, wow, I did that really quietly. Like, I'm fucking good
I could
at
just
this
keep
shit.
going.
Yeah. I bet I can break into that house over there. No. And on my way back, I'm going back through the garage, and I guess I was so quiet, I fooled my dog. Because he ran out, and this dog was a teddy bear, if he knew who you were. Like, he was just the most loving dog in the world, and he jumped up and clamped like an inch from my face. Like, I could not believe, I didn't know he could jump that high, because he was shaped like a bowling ball. So.
Yeah, so I'm picturing one of those, like, chain chomps from Mario, basically.
Yeah, it was like that loud. And I was like fucking terrified. I was like, it's not like mutually like angry and scared, or I'm like, yelling at my dog, like, don't kill me. No, bad dog. All right.
Anyway, so he's sneaking out. He twists
now,
the doorknob.
Yeah, if not now, never. He lived pretty far away. It would take at least an hour to get there by foot. I softly closed my door and lightly paced towards our sliding glass door. I opened it slowly. It must have been a minute before there was an opening big enough for me to squeeze through. Once I was through, I took no risk and took another minute to close it again. What does that mean? Like, you were going to just leave the door open, you asshole?
I think you mean you didn't, like, slam it shut, which, duh.
Oh,
so
okay. I thought he was just going to be, I can't take a risk. I'm going to fucking just walk off.
No, that's another angle to go with this if you're sneaking out, kids, is you leave
kidnapped.
The door open, but make sure to make it look like your bedroom's covered in blood.
Go to a rave and leave, like, a fucking ransom note.
Right.
And then come back, like, just, like, still
yeah,
fucked
if you get back before they find the note, good. If they discover you're missing, they'll think you were kidnapped.
If your friends are anything like my friends, they would just dump you out of the car onto the lawn, and it would be a believable story.
Yeah.
So.
And instead of getting in trouble, they'll just be super relieved that you were returned. So, and I assume the police would do no follow-up investigation. They'd be like, all's well that ends well. No harm, no foul.
I was outside and the moon illuminated the ground quite well. I lived in the desert area, and there were really no threats at night, save for coyotes, but they rarely attack. I kept a pocket knife on me, however. They were usually more scared of you than you were of them, but this was just a precaution. You can't ever be too careful out here. There's also a fair amount of shady people for such a small town, but that didn't worry me. That would worry me. Like, I don't know why you're thinking about coyotes as much. Coyotes they will fucking run off just because of your shape.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, like, fucking
Sex
shady
pests,
people
like, yeah.
will come to you just because you're a person.
Yeah, if you're in an area where you get that knock on the door and get handed one of those, like, hey, by the way, somebody moved into the area cards, like, once a week, you might not want to. You might worry about that more than the coyotes.
Yeah. The terrain was rugged and difficult to navigate. I had to dodge tall brush and jump over eroded crevices in the earth. Or crevices. I don't know what the plural pronunciation is there.
Crevices eyes.
Crevaille.
Crevasses.
Crevasse.
That's just a different word, but
that's just a spin on croissants.
Yeah.
I checked my watch. He's jumping over baked goods. I checked my watch. It was around 12:15, and I knew I must be close because I saw a familiar house that I always pass by while walking on the sidewalk to get to Cody's house. Only a couple more blocks and I would have made it. The terrain had gotten surprisingly less jagged and smoother after a couple minutes. The ground was mainly free of rocks and other obstructions, save for beer bottles and some dried-up bushes. But there was one thing that caught my eye. There was a brown torn tarp lying next to the side of a ditch I was walking through. I stopped for a moment and observed it, but before my curiosity managed to claw its way through and I slowly approached it. This is one of those beats where it's like, okay, you deserve whatever horrible thing is about to happen to you.
Right.
Leave the fucking tarp alone. It was probably just trash, but for some reason I felt inclined to see what it was. I nudged it with my foot, and a tall figure rose swiftly from under the cover. I was knocked back and frozen with fear. It was a bear-like creature that wore a dark brown trench coat and dusty brown pants. He was barefoot, and his feet were larger than any creature I know of. The bear-like creature stood up. He had to have stood higher than 6'5", towering over me.
That's not really that tall. There's 6'5" people. I mean, it's tall, but it's not.
I have never seen anyone bigger than 6 feet. Ever. Long white hair protruded from every visible inch of body there was, almost like an animal. So it's like a Austin Powers plays in the NBA.
Yeah, because he said almost like an animal, so it's not an animal.
Yeah,
it's
very like animal. That's the key thing here. Its glossy eyes met mine, and I was ready to run. I managed to stutter out a few words. Well, I stopped, examining the creature once more. What are you?
There you go.
The figure looked at me again and let out a loud, hearty chuckle. He wiped a few tears of joy from under his eyes and gave me a smile. Why, my boy, I'm Mr. Trenchfoot. Okay, then bounce. The moment somebody's like happy to be this monster.
Right.
Get the fuck out of Dodge, he said, still grinning at me. His tone was nothing short of friendly, and that was the only thing stopping me from making a mad dash back to my house. He gave me a puzzled look and asked, Do you by any chance know the date? I thought he was joking at first, and I laughed a bit. And then I saw his serious expression. I stuttered again, but managed to collect myself. It's June 7th, I said. He looked shocked, or rather intrigued. He looked at me again, and my eyes met his once more. My, I have been asleep quite long. It was November last time I was awake, he said, still sounding jovial. Now tell me, what have I missed? Oh, great. Now, this is actually scary. You got to explain, everything that's happened for
I can't
the last
tell you what I did
7
yesterday. Right.
We strangely got into a conversation, and it lasted a good 15 minutes. He asked me about politics and celebrities, but nothing too serious. We spoke for a while. I looked down at my watch and noticed the time. I had about 16 minutes to get there before it hit 1. I sat up from the rock on which I previously rested. I have to get going, I said. Mr. Trenchfoot stood up and wiped dirt off his coat and coughed before speaking. He walked towards a storm drain that seemed to lead into blackness. Follow me, he said, entering it. I need to show you something. His voice was all too friendly and inviting. He crawled.
More advice for you kids out there. If some weird stranger asks you to follow them into a storm drain, do it. You don't know what's in there.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be like 99% chance they're going to murder you, but that 1%, it's just going to be something magical.
We're not strangers. We've talked about 6 months of politics. He crawled further into the pipe, and soon he was enveloped in darkness. I dared not enter and stood there for a while. He turned, and the only reason I knew that is because the little bit of moonlight illuminated his eyes, just as it would a dog's or a cat's. I stepped back a bit, a little frightened, and reminded him I had to go. Come here, he said softly. He repeated, and each time he got more angered and menacing. Come here. Come here. Come here. He inched forward.
Oh, now you have convinced me.
Yeah, well, fourth time's a charm. Just enough so I could see him fully. Long black claws protruded from his fingers. He clawed the sides as he repeated, Come here now. Come here now. I ran as fast as I could, back up the ditch I was walking in, daring not to look back to see if he was following until I was at a safe distance. Which, how do you know? It's a monster you have never seen before. How do you know you're at a safe distance? Run forever like Forrest Gump.
Yeah, especially if you were like approaching your destination. Just run till you're there.
Yeah. After about
and then never speak of it because you're a kid going to a kid party. Like if you try to tell people you ran into some monster called Mr. Trenchfeet.
This is great for a party. This is great material. Just, don't expect anybody to believe you.
Except Cody, because Mr. Trenchfoot's his dealer.
Cody's a noted piece of shit.
Well, right.
So, well documented. After about a minute of running, I looked back and was relieved. He did not follow. He stood, watching, as the moon outlined his figure. I continued to run as fast as I think I've ever run. I hopped over my fence, this time not cautious of not making any noise, and I ran inside, tired and frightened. My dad heard my entrance and ran to see what the cause of the noise was. I explained something had tried to attack me, and he called the police without hesitation, and I was under arrest. No. I explained to the police where it happened and what I saw. They took no time to rush to the area and investigate.
Yeah, right. Because a big hairy monster was here and be like, let's rush there. I mean,
yeah, we know cops. They're gonna fucking pull out the SWAT team to, track down a homeless man who freaked you out. They took no time to rush to the area and investigate. No sign of Mr. Trenchfoot. I was at the scene watching them at a safe distance with my mom and dad. I had shown the chief the drain pipe that Mr. Trenchfoot had tried to lure me in. He took no time to motion several armed men inside. They didn't find him, though, and they still haven't to this day. That was my story. Creepy, right? Things have been the same. I got grounded for a couple weeks, but they let me off because they were glad I was safe. So you could say this had a happy ending, I guess for me at least. I still haven't told you the best part. You know how I said they didn't find him? Well, when they kicked open a grate, they entered a concrete room, no bigger than a walk-in closet. Again, they didn't find Mr. Trenchfoot in there. However, they did find something. They found Mr. Trenchfoot's tarp in there, still dusty as ever. There was no sign of Mr. Trenchfoot. You said that. Or
I promise you, they did not find him. I swear to God, he was
found. If I can convey anything to you in these last 3 paragraphs, there was no sign of Mr. Trenchfoot or any life for that matter. There was another thing in the room. In the far corner of the dark, cold concrete shelter was a pile of bloody, torn clothes, all of them belonging to children in my town that went missing in the last 20 years. The end.
I like the implication that there's now a naked monster out there looking for kids.
Yeah.
And then also
I'm
the
Mr.
implication.
Trench Dong.
Yeah, isn't that the cliche? Like,
oh,
he
my
just
boy,
opens his...
I'm Mr. Mudcock.
Mudcock.
Mr. Mudcock.
It's interesting. This one makes the interesting choice of, like, the whole twist is like, oh, well, you know, it was implausible and they didn't find anything. And then it's like, you have to, like, drag out the twist of them, like, except bloody clothes. It's like, at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a long time to drag that out. I do like the simplicity of this story of just kid meets a monster. You know, like that's, you know.
It was very like.
You want spins on it, but there's a reason that formula appeals. And
it was kind of reminded me of like It, in that it's like this monster starts off like this whole. Now it's a little different because it's a clown and it's creepy to a lot of people to begin with, but it's
the
still
story
the
is
clown
kind of like, what if Georgie wasn't a fucking idiot?
Yeah, right. But with the creature trying like painting it like, oh, you came across this weird creature, but he's super nice, like he's a cool dude and he's fun to talk to, and then it's like, oh, by the way, come into my dark murder cave. And
this guy's cool. He knows Obama.
But he picked the wrong kid because this kid wasn't a deviant yet.
Yeah. I wasn't this piece of shit.
I think that's the whole moral of this story. Is not that he survived a monster and that the monster's real. This was the turning point in his life where he's like, fuck it, I'm going to be a rebel.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It was...
Like, maybe the kid grew up to be Mr. Trenchfoot. Like, now he lures kids into pipes and kills them.
This is interesting. I'm just clicking around here. Apparently, he did a prequel story.
Oh, wow.
So that's pretty new. It's not very long. I could probably knock that out if you want to do it.
Sure, we're only at 27 minutes.
All right. So, hey, double pod, except it's the same length. As usual. I'm taking all of MacaroniZombeh's shit. This is called In the Trenches. He just says, before authors know this is a prequel to Mr. Trenchfoot, some things might make more sense if you read it first and vice versa. In a sense, there's really no order to read them. Great.
All right,
way
we
to
better
start
fucking
a prequel.
find out. Yeah. You need to read the other one first to understand this one, but you also have to read this one first to understand it. It's like, wait.
I want to make sure you're aware that you're fucked no matter how you come into it. I kind of respect that.
Yeah, sure.
You know, there's so many series where it's like, where should I start? Well, you could start with, and it's like, you know, this one's like, it doesn't matter. You're going to be confused by the end anyway.
All I know is this one better explain the origin of the name Trenchfoot, and it sounds like it. So,
I mean, in the trenches, we found a foot. The night air was cold in the trenches that night. It was late at night, and a young soldier, Arthur, was on guard duty. The trenches were extensive and built like a maze, so bumping into another soldier was unlikely. The only sound was the soft pattering of rain and wind, and as always the sloshing of mud and water below Arthur's boots. He carried his rifle rested on his shoulder. He was trained to do this.
What was his natural inclination? He carried his rifle resting on his knee.
He kept trying to lick it like a lollipop, and we put a stop to that. He was trained to do this, and it was his task every night to keep out any enemies from the opposite side. Pretty tall order for one guy. Of course, they had a few trained snipers, but you never would know when the enemy could hatch a brilliant plan. That should be like a quote when you die in Call of Duty. It's like, you never know when the enemy could hatch a brilliant plan. Winston Churchill.
Enemy's brilliant plan. Shoot the...
Throw a grenade, have it bounce off 3 things, and you're fucked because it homed in on you. The light rain mixed with heavy winds only made his job even harder at night. Or even harder tonight, sorry. As the tedious task of patrolling around his normal route continued, the rain turned from a light sprinkle to a heavy downfall. It was about at this time Arthur couldn't see more than 10 feet in front of him. He pushed against the headwinds and the pouring rain and trudged on. He was taught to never let nature hinder his main objective, no matter how bad it was.
See, that's bullshit, because...
Like, they learned that in Napoleon times. Nature will fuck you.
Right. It's easy to say. It's like the Postal Service motto. But it's like, yeah, okay, so yeah, we don't let weather get in our way until there's a fucking hurricane and like your whole unit gets wiped out because you're marching across the field like idiots. Like,
well, if you just, you hate your country if you let that blizzard freeze you to death.
Yeah. If you were more patriotic, you would have just not frozen.
Hold your gun on your shoulder, you scallywag. I don't know.
I believe both. Well, yeah, but pirates fought inland battles too. Yeah. It's not well known because it's not true. But
hours later, the wind still blew. Arthur was pushing with all of his might, trying to keep his balance. Though he had promised himself he wouldn't give up, he kneeled down for a breather. Though the night air was cold, especially with winds and rain mixed in, sweat ran down Arthur's face. The wind died down, and Arthur could now see farther in front of him. When he looked up from his position, he spotted someone unfamiliar. He was bulky and wasn't wearing any uniform he had seen. He was taught what all the uniforms looked like and didn't recognize the figure donned.
What's that class like? Where they hold up flashcards?
Yeah, I'm so confused. Didn't you just see the enemy and know? Did you need to be taught?
Well, I think the number one rule when you're in battle is anybody that you're not sure who they are, you assume is an enemy.
You assume it's Mr. Trenchfoot.
Yeah. Well, sure. I'm going to from now on.
Yeah. He was taught what all the uniforms looked like and didn't recognize the one the figure donned. It was a dark brown coat, half buttoned up. Arthur did what he was taught and raised his gun. Arthur thought about putting on his gas mask for a chemical attack may be imminent. But that's fair. You should wear a gas mask at all times.
Although I generally would assume that the enemy doesn't walk over to you and then gas you.
He's just going to fart.
Yeah, what you got to be concerned is when you see the enemy running like hell the other way, laughing ha ha ha. I think that's how it worked anyway. I don't know.
But it was too late. Arthur already had his gun trained on the figure's head. Hey! Arthur screamed at the figure. The figure turned to Arthur, his eyes meeting Arthur's. The figure's eyes were glossy and plainly visible. The figure had long, dirty white hair protruding from every visible inch of skin. The figure's nose was pink and pressed into his face, as of that of an animal, like a cat or a dog, perhaps. Arthur quivered at his massive size. "Put your hands up," Arthur said, ready to pull the trigger at any moment. The figure did not comply to Arthur's commands. "You asked for it." Without hesitation, Arthur pulled the trigger. The figure flinched, but the thick fur blocked the bullet. Arthur dropped his gun out of fright. And see, just because one bullet doesn't work doesn't mean you should give up.
No.
It just means you need to aim better. And
they do this in movies and video games too, especially movies and stuff. It's like they do that. They drop their gun out of fright. It's like I would, even if I was afraid and I was going to run, I'd keep my fucking gun. What good does it do you to be like, now I don't have a weapon and you perhaps do if you come pick it up?
Arthur dropped his gun out of fright. He went to pick it up, but it was too late. The figure was dashing towards him. Arthur reacted by pulling out a pistol and firing a couple of rounds to no avail.
Yeah, if your rifle didn't work, the pistol's probably a bad switch to.
I'm sure you could shove it in his mouth or something like that. The figure slashed into Arthur's chest with what he assumed was a blade of sorts. As Arthur flew back into the mud, holding his chest, he soon learned the figure had claws. Long, black claws. Arthur scuttled back, hoping the creature that was attacking would have mercy. The creature tore into Arthur's neck before dropping him. Arthur laid, clinging for life, looking into the eyes of his ferocious killer. He choked on blood and mucus. He managed to sputter out a few words, coughing up more blood in the process. "What are you?" Arthur asked, terrified beyond words. Well, those were words.
Yeah. Beyond additional words is what it should say.
The creature smiled at Arthur, examining a job well done. It chuckled a hearty chuckle before gazing back into Arthur's eyes. Its friendly grin contorted into a twisted smile. It revealed its rows of sharp, pointy teeth. "Aye, my boy," the creature started. Arthur was moments away from death, holding back tears while bleeding out. "I, my boy, am Mr. Trenchfoot." Arthur's eyelids grew heavy as Mr. Trenchfoot tore his dog tags from his neck. He opened a pocket to reveal a whole collection of them. His was just another statistic. He closed his pocket and trudged off. The last thing Arthur saw before dying was his glossy, evil eyes.
I mean, in fairness, Arthur, you took the first shot.
Yeah, you didn't even tell him about the state of politics.
Right.
He has no idea what's going on in this war.
So now
it's definitely it, right? You know, it's...
Well, and I'm thinking that, like, the monster in the original story isn't, like, just me. He's killing kids because he's got PTSD from the trench warfare of... I don't know.
It's a pretty big drop-off, though, in, like, hunting. To go from, like, trained soldiers to, like, I'm going to just kill kids now.
Well...
I'm not saying, like, you know, it's obviously a monster. He's supposed to do evil shit, but it's just kind of like... you know, whoever I happen to run into alone at night is good enough.
He's searching for the one that gave him the name Mr. Trenchfoot. He's like, this name's so fucking stupid, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
Like...
Pretty weak prequel, I gotta say. Because the best part of that original story is how he's, like, you know, halfway fucking charming at first.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, like, it becomes clear he's something. I mean, it's all already clear, but to the main character, it's like something sinister.
Like, he could have sprinted up to the soldier and then pulled the bullet out of his fur and said, "Excuse me, sir, I believe you lost this." And then they could have had a nice chat.
I don't... It's such a dick move. It's way worse than, I think, just, like, making fun of the stories. But we can't help it. But I end up coming up with ideas I like more.
I know.
Based off, like, what they did. But how I would do this, because I'm an arrogant asshole, I'm going to say, if you followed my script, it'd probably, you know, probably get reviewed worse. But how I would do it, to keep that motif of, like, he's initially charming, is have him look like keep him kind of shadowy, but make it almost seem like he's like a deserted soldier or a soldier like a lost battalion.
Yeah, or even just like a wounded civilian that somehow got caught in the crossfire.
He's like sharing water with this guy and they're like talking about the war or some shit, you know, and then have it evolve into, you know, Mr. Trenchfoot, Private Trenchfoot, Chief Corporal Trenchfoot.
A private Trenchfoot's a different part of a different monster. Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's actually, like I said, it's kind of a by the books monster, but I do think there's actually kind of a charm to it. Like there's, you know, the appeal of like making this weird thing almost like a fucking Willy Wonka figure at first, and then like actually it's a monster and it's gonna eat you now.
Which is also still Willy Wonka-esque.
Yeah. Because he's going to make you edible, bitch.
Right.
So, yeah.
Is this a trilogy by any chance? Like,
it might be. I think
is there a Mrs. Trenchfoot?
Mr. Trenchfoot. Let's see. I remember there was another story, I think, by this guy, or girl, or whatever gender they identify with.
I'm at this point, I'm extremely convinced that my theory was right, and this is the Cranberries singer.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that was technically your theory that she's faked her death, but
yeah.
Although I will admit, every time I hear the title the name Mr. Trenchfoot, I'm like saying it in my head like Mr. Bright Eyes from.
Yeah.
What band is that? I forget.
There is another story. You want to do that one too? We can.
Is it short enough? Because now we're getting up there, but
it is longer than that one. We can come back to it.
Yeah, maybe that'll be our special like Christmas feature. We'll have jingle bells in the background, and
so I don't think this next one is about Mr. Trenchfoot, but it follows the main character from Mr. Trenchfoot. So
that kid, it's once they become deviant or rebellious. When they go like it.
So
yeah, I think that could be like I said, that's a very special like Thanksgiving or Christmas episode right there. I guess not Thanksgiving. This one will be our Thanksgiving.
Off on Thanksgiving, so there will not be an episode next week. Not that we need. You're used to it now. Excuse,
that's why we skipped all those other weeks leading up to this, is because to train you so you know how to survive.
An absentee podcast,
right? You know how many podcasts I'll find on like Spotify? I'm like, this one's good, and then I'll look back. Oh, they haven't had a new episode since like April. So I think we do pretty good.
We do pretty good, and you know what? Every other fucking podcast you listen to, they get like 30 minutes in, and then they're like, "We're gonna take a break." It's like from what?
What the fuck's that about?
Talking about football,
right?
It's like, finish the show, you ass.
I've noticed that because it feels like they almost do it like, oh, we're going to give you a break. Like if you got to go to the bathroom, it's like, it's a fucking podcast. I can hit the pause button.
Yeah. It's like you just edit it in. And when they say we're going to take a break, it means we're going to shoehorn in a fucking Blue Chew ad.
Yeah. Blue Chew or Male Kimp or whatever. Is it Chimp? I think they always say it Kimp. Or Indeed. Indeed's the fucking one I get all the time.
Yeah.
Like how many... Indeed's a weird one because it's like, if you're hiring, it's like, how many of us percentage-wise are in charge of hiring? Right.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. If Indeed wants to sponsor the show, though, hey.
In fairness. They sponsor a lot of shows. I think we could get it on that.
Yeah, I'm going to bet you, if you're not an advertiser on this program, you're the fucking scum of the earth.
That's our monetization plan. It's not that like, oh, pay us to advertise this. Pay us to stop bitching about you.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, you know what commercials I can stand? The ones that pay for this show. We will come back to our hero to see how he became a delinquent in the vein of his bro Cody.
The fallout of thinking he met a new hairy friend and then realizing he narrowly avoided death.
Mr. Trenchfoot just wanted him for his politics.
Or his bloody clothes. Like, we don't have proof. If they only found clothes, we didn't find bodies. Like, maybe the kids are fine. They just, like, bled all over their clothes and were like, I don't want these anymore.
Based off the prequel, we can assume the kids are not fine.
Maybe that's why they wrote the prequels. They're like, wait, I really need to clear up the fact that this thing is killing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. So yeah, have a good Thanksgiving. Or don't. Don't make me pressure you. You can flip the fucking table if you want.
We're actually doing it for the third time in 18 years. We're just having a small one at my house, so I'd definitely be flipping the table.
Yeah. And, we'll be back after the holiday.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
It depends. I might choke on a turkey bone.
It really doesn't take much to throw this show off course. But, that's okay. There's like 1 billion episodes of it now. If you don't get a new one, go back to an old one.
Right.
Remember why you loved us in the first place. And
then tell us what we talked about, because I've forgotten. We're 240. I think this.
Go back to an old episode. I guarantee you it's probably the same topic.
You're like, I'm going to randomly listen to episode 17. Oh, this is Mr. Trenchfoot. We have no idea that we've done this exact show.
This was genuinely one where it was like, we might have done it, but I'm going to just plow through.
I'm fairly certain we hadn't, and I'm glad we have now, because I did like it. Yeah. There's some plot holes. There's some
fun character.
Room for improvements.
Heck now, but not get your own Mr. Trenchfoot plush.
That's the thing. It is the perfect name for a creature. Like,
buy the Mr. Trenchfoot dancing plush. It watches you sleep.
And I say this all the time, but it would also be a perfect name for like a punk band or something, or ska even. Mr. Trenchfoot. I mean, I could see it. Mr. Trenchfoot's debut single, "Get In Now." Get in.
That's like, sounds like a sort of Creed voice Christian band. It's like, I want Jesus to get inside me now.
Yeah, where you're not really sure, but it really sounds like they mean like in a sexual way.
Yeah, it's like that South Park Christian rock episode where it's like, it seems like you guys really love Jesus. All right.
Anyway, let's end on we'll end on a nice little flavor, like little bit of heresy, and
dabble in heresy.
Yeah.
Dip your toes into the heresy pool. All right. See you next time.
Get in. Get in.
Get out.